At my husband's gala for the billion-dollar deal signing, I streamed his infidelity live onto the large display screen. Everyone thought I was just a clinging vine, dependent on him until they saw him and his mistress rolling around on the marital bed I had bought. He shrieked into the microphone, "You'll ruin me." And I just shook the incriminating financial evidence in my hand. Darling, this is ruin. The price of infidelity, delivered by me personally. At my husband's major partnership ceremony, I projected photos of his affair. My husband was basking in glory at the major partnership ceremony. Everyone said I only became the CEO's wife because of him, but no one knew that the surveillance in his office was connected to my phone. On the screen now, he and his mistress were thrashing around on the marital bed I had bought. I smiled and pressed the remote control. The large display screen in the banquet hall suddenly switched to a live, explicit scene. His face turned ashen as he yelled at me, "Are you insane? This will destroy me." I shook the incriminating financial evidence in my other hand. Darling, this is destruction. The spotlights poured over Marcus Thorne like hot gold dust. He stood at the front of the banquet hall, his perfectly tailored suit outlining the silhouette of a successful man. Every pore seemed to glow. Below him, the hall was packed with people, and the paparazzi cameras were focused on his face, flashbulbs popping in a dazzling, interwoven net of light. He raised his hand slightly, a simple gesture that brought a wave of applause. On the gigantic LED background wall, the bold red words "Apex Industries Billion-Dollar Strategic Partnership Ceremony" shone like a massive medal, proclaiming his moment of triumph. Today marks a crucial step for Apex Industries as we move towards the future. Marcus Thorne's voice, clear, confident, and with a magnetic quality that conveyed complete control, resonated through the high ceilings, igniting another round of even more enthusiastic applause. I, Evelyn Hayes, sat in the first row of the VIP section, a perfect vantage point from which I could take in his self-satisfied profile on stage and the admiring gazes of everyone below. The air was infused with the faint scent of champagne, the rich aroma of expensive perfumes, and an aura called CEO's wife. Occasionally, glances would sweep my way, carrying an imperceptible envy or speculation, silently conveying a shared understanding. Look, that's Marcus Thorne's wife, Evelyn Hayes, her glory entirely dependent on the man standing at the pinnacle. I picked up the clear champagne glass in front of me, the cool condensation chilling my fingertips. My blurred reflection shimmered on the glass, and a perfectly poised CEO's wife smile seemed to grace my lips. No one knew that my other hand, hanging by my side, was tightly clutching my phone, my palm clammy and cold. The phone screen was lit. It was divided into 4 clear frames, showing Marcus Thorne's office on the top floor of Apex Industries, which offered a magnificent view, and the connected private lounge. Every corner was meticulously visible. At that moment, the largest frame showed the spacious, luxurious marital bed in the lounge. The crisp white sheets were disheveled. Marcus Thorne's body covered a young, fair-skinned girl, like an insatiable beast. His familiar gasps, filled with a sickening urgency, faintly leaked through the phone's earpiece, like a cold serpent coiling around my eardrums. The girl's face was buried in the pillow, emitting muffled moans, her long, curly hair spread out like seaweed. This bed, I had personally chosen, every detail, from the Italian custom solid wood frame to the finest Egyptian cotton bedding, was imbued with my entire imagination and investment in the word home. It had once held my aspirations and warmth, but now, it had become a hotbed for their sordid desires. My stomach churned, and I gulped down a large mouthful of champagne. The cold liquid slid down, but instead of quelling the burning sensation, it was like gasoline poured on a smoldering fire, erupting into a roaring blaze. On stage, Marcus Thorne's speech was reaching its climax. He waved his arms spiritedly. The powerful alliance with Global Reach Inc. will usher in an unprecedented new chapter for Apex Industries. This is strength, and even more, it is trust. His voice was loud and infectious, as if he truly were a strategist and an impeccable business leader. On my phone screen, on that marital bed that belonged to me, the battle was also raging. Marcus Thorne's actions were filled with an almost brutal possessiveness, a stark contrast to the refined, elite image he projected on stage, as if they belonged to 2 different worlds. The intense visual shock made my fingertips tremble uncontrollably. 3 days ago, this haunting image, like a persistent illness, had unexpectedly been seared into my mind. On that day, that afternoon, I went to the company to deliver an important document he had left at home. His office door was closed, and his secretary Amy, with a strange expression, stopped me, saying that Mr. Thorne was in an important video conference and had given strict instructions not to be disturbed. I nodded and turned towards his exclusive private lounge next door, planning to leave the document inside for him. The door was ajar. The moment I pushed it open, the air seemed to solidify. A pungent mix of perfume and lustful scent assaulted me. Scattered on the floor were expensive suit jackets and women's stockings. My gaze swept past the messy sofa. Settling on the large bed in the inner room, Marcus Thorne was shirtless, pinning a young girl in a company finance department uniform tightly onto my marital bed. The girl's face was mostly obscured by Marcus Thorne's body, revealing only a head of meticulously styled chestnut curly hair. Marcus Thorne's breathing was heavy, his movements possessing a familiar, yet now utterly grotesque, brute force. Blood rushed to my head instantly, then froze into eyes the next second. I stood rigid, as if struck by an invisible hammer. My breath caught. The world's sounds were drained away, leaving only the sickening gasps and the faint, strained groans of the mattress springs. I don't know how long passed, perhaps a few seconds, perhaps a few minutes. Like a ghost, I silently retreated, gently closing the door. My movements were so light they didn't disturb the fierce battle inside in the slightest. I didn't even leave immediately, like a masochist. I sat on the cold leather sofa in his outer office, my fingers nervously tracing patterns on my phone screen. My fingertips were cold, trembling slightly and uncontrollably as I tapped on that long-dormant security monitoring app, which I had personally paid to install and held the highest authority for. Clear images instantly popped up. The angles were precise, completely unobstructed this time. I saw the girl's face clearly. Chloe Davis, a newly recruited assistant in the finance department, fresh out of college, with eyes that curved into a smile, appearing completely harmless. Yet, at this moment, her young face was contorted with twisted desire. Even more jarring was Marcus Thorne's expression. It was one of pure, carnal indulgence, tinged with the triumph of a predator over prey. There was not a trace of guilt, only complete immersion and enjoyment. It was as if the woman beneath him, defiling our marital bed, was merely an expensive plaything, and the distraught wife outside the door was nothing more than a speck of dust. The light from the phone screen dimly illuminated my pale face, my stomach churned, and a strong, metallic taste rose in my throat. I bit down hard on my lower lip until I tasted a hint of blood, barely managing to suppress the urge to vomit that threatened to erupt. At that moment, something that had been supporting me completely collapsed. What followed was not heart-wrenching tears, but a suffocating stillness, like sinking to the bottom of an icy lake. Hatred, like a black vine, began to grow wildly from the cold depths, coiling around every nerve. A piercing feedback shriek from the microphone on stage abruptly dragged me back to the opulent banquet hall. Marcus Thorne's speech finally ended, self-satisfied, like a king surveying his domain. His gaze swept over the audience, finally landing on me for a moment. In his eyes, there was a deliberate reassurance, the triumph of being in control, and even a hint of an imperceptible warning, as if to say, "See, this is your place, sit still." The host's enthusiastic voice rang out. Next, the most important segment of this signing ceremony. Please welcome the president of Apex Industries, Mr. Marcus Thorne, and the CEO of Global Reach Inc., Mr. Sterling, to jointly sign this billion-dollar strategic cooperation agreement. Let us all witness this historic moment. Exhilarating music roared, like a trumpet of victory. The spotlights once again accurately pinpointed Marcus Thorne and the white-haired, distinguished Mr. Sterling of Global Reach Inc., courtesy hostesses, dressed in vibrant designer evening gowns, elegantly walked onto the stage carrying trays covered in red velvet. On the trays, 2 gilt-edged contracts gleamed enticingly under the lights. The atmosphere in the entire banquet hall reached a boiling point. Everyone stood up, craning their necks, phone cameras aimed at the stage, afraid to miss this historic moment. Applause, cheers, and the click of camera flashes merged into a roaring ocean of sound, almost threatening to lift the roof. Marcus Thorne, beaming, picked up the signing pen from the tray, elegantly uncapping it. The gleaming tip hovered above the signature line of the contract. Ready to make that invaluable stroke, he turned his head, giving Mr. Sterling a perfect, confident smile. Now, I set down the champagne glass I had almost crushed. My cold fingertips slid across the phone screen, tapping a hidden, unmarked black icon. The interface was simple, with only a prominent red button labeled Send to Main Display. My heart pounded heavily in my chest. A rhythmic thud against my ribs, the rush of blood in my ears drowned out all the commotion in the hall, but my hand, holding the phone, was remarkably steady. The hatred that had festered in the icy depths for 3 days, the humiliation of being betrayed, used, and treated as nothing, had now solidified into a cold, pure resolve. I lifted my head, my gaze piercing through the crowd, accurately landing on the enormous LED main screen at the back of the stage, which was currently broadcasting the signing ceremony live. Then, my fingertip gently descended, pressing the cold red button. Time seemed to slow down. The rousing music still flowed. The host's voice still echoed, and the admiring, excited faces in the audience remained frozen in the expectation of the previous second. But the giant main screen, that banner representing Marcus Thorne's supreme glory at that moment, suddenly flickered. Immediately after, the image changed. A suffocatingly clear image instantly replaced the festive signing background. It was the scene I had watched for 3 days, seared into my mind like a brand. Marcus Thorne and Chloe Davis's intertwined figures on the messy bed in the lounge, presented nakedly before everyone at a scale too large to ignore. Marcus Thorne's heavy gasps, Chloe Davis's soft moans, were amplified without reservation by the banquet hall's top-tier sound system, instantly drowning out all other sounds in the venue. Time froze. The air was sucked out. The banquet hall, which had been buzzing with excitement just a second before, plunged into a deathly silence, an absolute, pin-drop, suffocating silence. All eyes, as if pulled by invisible strings, swiveled in unison, with incredulous horror, towards the massive screen displaying the explicit scene. Then, countless gazes, as if burned, snapped back to the man on stage who was still holding the pen, frozen in his signing pose. The smile on Marcus Thorne's face completely froze, as if flash frozen. It was an extremely complex expression, a mix of extreme shock, bewilderment, disbelief, then swiftly devoured by an overwhelming fear and shame. The hand holding the signing pen trembled violently, the tip scratching an ugly ink mark on the contract. He instinctively snapped his head up, looking at the giant screen, his pupils constricting to their maximum, as if he had seen a vision of hell. Ah! A short, sharp scream, unmistakably Chloe Davis's, pierced the silence. Although her face was partially obscured in the video, her voice was too distinct. This scream was like a drop of water into boiling oil. The silent banquet hall exploded with a roar, gasps of astonishment, cries of disbelief, mixed with a few suppressed snickers and gleeful whispers, swept through the entire space like a hurricane. Reporters went wild, furiously snapping photos of the giant screen and the distraught Marcus Thorne, their flashbulbs flashing in a continuous stream. Even more frenzied than before, Mr. Sterling of Global Reach Inc.'s face turned ashen, and he sharply stepped back, as if afraid of being contaminated by something foul. His eyes filled with shock and disdain. His executives quickly moved to shield him, and the scene descended into utter chaos. Marcus Thorne stood frozen like a statue struck by lightning, the color drained completely from his face, leaving it ashen, and large beads of cold sweat instantly appeared on his forehead, reflecting a greasy sheen under the spotlights. The hand holding the pen trembled like autumn leaves in the wind, and the contract, bearing billion-dollar dreams, rustled between his fingers. After a few seconds of blankness, he finally regained a fragmented sliver of consciousness from the immense shock. He violently flung away the expensive signing pen. It hit the stage with a jarring clatter, like a cornered beast, utterly enraged and desperate. His bloodshot eyes frantically scanned the chaotic crowd below, filled with a predatory fury. His gaze, like a poisoned arrow, pierced through the chaotic crowd, accurately and fiercely locking onto me. I remained seated in the first row, in that prominent VIP section. The surrounding screams, chaos, and camera flashes seemed to fade into a blurred background. I calmly met his eyes, burning with terror and rage, and even, slowly and clearly, offered him a smile, a chilling, utterly devoid of warmth smile. This smile completely ignited what little sanity he had left. Evelyn Hayes, a hoarse, utterly enraged roar, like the dying wail of a wounded beast, tore through the venue's din and crashed down on me. He lunged forward, seemingly wanting to charge off the stage regardless of consequences, but was firmly held back by his assistants and bodyguards who had reacted quickly. He struggled furiously, his expensive suit ripped out of shape, his tie askew, his hair disheveled, all composure gone. Across the surging heads, he glared at me, his eyes almost bulging, his voice completely distorted by extreme anger and fear. Are you insane? You crazy woman. Do you have any idea what you're doing? This will destroy me. Destroy everything. Every word was spat out as if mixed with blood. Destroy him? The frozen lake in my heart rippled with a cruel edge. Can't handle this already? I slowly and gracefully rose from my seat. The spotlights were already sweeping chaotically everywhere. But at this moment, it was as if another invisible beam of light shone directly on me. I straightened my back, the cold smile still fixed on my face, my gaze calmly sweeping through the chaotic scene, finally settling steadily on his face. Twisted with rage, under the focus of countless shocked, scrutinizing and gleeful gazes, I slowly raised my left hand. What I held there was not a phone, but a small, silver, metallic USB drive. Under the shifting lights of the banquet hall, it gleamed with a cold, understated luster, like a tiny, lethal bullet. I gently shook the USB drive, a small movement, yet it carried a strange, all-controlling rhythm. My voice was not loud, even carrying a nearly gentle calm, yet it strangely cut through the din of the venue, clearly reaching the man on stage who was on the verge of collapse. Darling, my voice was like ice-cold silk, projecting that kind of thing. I paused, my gaze sweeping over his ghost-pale face, over the enormous screen still silently playing their disgraceful spectacle, and finally settling back into his fear-filled eyes. This is destruction. The cold edges of the USB drive pressed into my palm. Inside it was Marcus Thorne's personally signed, detailed financial records and falsified vouchers for misappropriating tens of millions of corporate funds to purchase real estate, luxury cars, and extravagant items for Chloe Davis. It was irrefutable evidence of his draining company profits through related party transactions. The ultimate indictment that would permanently brand him as a commercial criminal. The true destruction had only just begun. The cold USB drive vibrated slightly between my fingers, its metallic sheen dancing in the shifting lights, like a beating heart or a bullet poised to fire. What it projected was not light, but the sudden, deepening despair on Marcus Thorne's face, like that of a drowning man. He choked out a guttural sound, as if an invisible hand was strangling his windpipe, struggling to force out fragmented syllables. No. Impossible. Fake. It's all fake. He abruptly turned to Mr. Sterling of Global Reach Inc., whose face was livid and who was almost storming off, extending a trembling hand as if grasping for a last straw. Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling, please let me explain. This is a setup. It's this crazy woman. She hates me. She fabricated it. Mr. Sterling violently slapped away his outstretched hand, his action disgusted, as if flicking away something vile. The elder's sharp gaze swept over the giant screen, still silently playing the disgraceful scene, then returned to Marcus Thorne's face, utterly twisted by fear and shame. Finally, his eyes fixed on the USB drive I held up, he said nothing, only let out a soft snort from his nose, yet it was loud enough for the entire silent hall to hear. The disdain and disappointment in that sound were like an invisible slap, harshly striking Marcus Thorne's face. Global Reach Inc., Mr. Sterling's voice was not loud, but carried an undeniable authority, clearly overriding the buzzing murmurs in the hall. Only partners with trustworthy and disciplined companies. Today's signing is cancelled. For all subsequent legal consequences, my lawyers will contact your company. He no longer looked at Marcus Thorne, turning to his executives and bodyguards and saying in a low voice, "Let's go, Mr. Sterling." Mr. Sterling, you can't do this. This is a trap. Marcus Thorne completely panicked, trying to chase after him without regard for his image, but he was unceremoniously blocked by Global Reach Inc. As burly bodyguards. He staggered, his expensive leather shoes stepping on the scattered contract papers on the floor, leaving dirty footprints. That billion-dollar new chapter was now trash-trampled under his feet. "Stop him," I said into the microphone, my voice not loud, but clearly heard throughout the hall at some point. I had taken the host's microphone. My gaze swept to the security personnel standing at the side of the stage, whom I had secretly paid handsomely and held leverage over. Ensure Mr. Sterling's safe departure. Also, Mr. Marcus Thorne is suspected of serious economic crimes. Please make sure he remains on site until the police arrive. He is not to go anywhere." Those security guards immediately sprang into action, expertly separating the chaotic crowd, escorting Mr. Sterling and his entourage quickly out of the venue simultaneously. Two of them, one on each side, firmly controlled the still struggling Marcus Thorne like iron tongs. "Evelyn Hayes, you viper, you rot in hell." Marcus Thorne, his arms twisted behind his back and unable to move, could only roar like a defanged beast, spitting saliva. "You wish. Those things. How could you possibly have gotten those things? They're all fake. Fake." His frantic barks were drowned out by the greater chaos in the venue. Reporters had gone completely mad. Paparazzi cameras practically shoved into my face, and Marcus Thorne's countless questions rained down like hail. "Ms. Hayes, what is the content on the USB drive in your hand? Mr. Thorne, what is your response to the infidelity and alleged economic crimes? Ms. Hayes, how long have you planned all this? Is this revenge?" News reports indicate Apex Industries stock has entered a trading halt. What are your thoughts on this crisis of trust? Flashbulbs merged into a blinding white light, almost swallowing everyone whole. I ignored the clamoring questions. My gaze cut through the chaos, precisely catching a familiar figure, Chloe Davis. She had, at some point, blended into the edge of the crowd, her face ghostly pale, trembling like a leaf in the wind, trying to shield her face with her handbag, shrinking towards the exit like a startled mouse. Clearly, the live broadcast on the giant screen and the sudden turn of events had completely broken her. "Ms. Davis." My voice rang out clearly through the microphone, carrying the calm demeanor of a cat toying with a mouse. "In such a rush to leave? Where's the joy you had when you signed for that riverfront penthouse and Maserati sports car? Mr. Thorne hasn't properly thanked you for your efforts yet." I deliberately emphasized efforts, eliciting a series of knowing chuckles and turning more cameras towards her. Chloe Davis froze as if under a spell. She lifted her head in terror, meeting my gaze, her lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. The immense fear made her almost collapse, and a bystander instinctively helped steady her. "Oh, by the way," I said, as if just remembering, my tone light but every word cutting deep, "I forgot to remind you. That $5 million bonus you had in Apex Industries Finance Department's Special Projects account, and the sudden increase in the shell company's cash flow under your mother's name, are all here." I gently shook the small USB drive again, a silver flash. "Don't worry, soon, professionals will pay a visit to you and your mother." Chloe Davis's eyes completely glazed over, and she let out a short whimper. Her body went limp, and she actually fainted, caught by the people around her. The scene erupted in another uproar and a flurry of camera flashes. "Evelyn Hayes, I'll kill you. I'll kill you." Witnessing Chloe Davis's collapse, Marcus Thorne's eyes were bloodshot with rage, and he struggled with such force he nearly overwhelmed the two strong security guards. The look he gave me was one of poisonous hatred, devoid of any pretense of past affection, leaving only a naked, desperate madness for mutual destruction. Just then, the heavy doors of the banquet hall burst open. "Police, clear the way." Several uniformed police officers entered, their expressions serious. The middle-aged officer leading them had eyes as sharp as an eagle's, sweeping the entire room. Finally resting on me and Marcus Thorne, the hall instantly quieted considerably, with only the suppressed clicks of reporters' cameras remaining. I stepped forward proactively, steadily handing the silver USB drive to the officer, my voice clear and calm. "Officer, I am Evelyn Hayes. I am formally reporting Apex Industries President Marcus Thorne for multiple serious economic crimes, including embezzlement, misappropriation of vast public funds, commercial bribery, and forging financial instruments. All evidence, including detailed financial records, contracts, signed vouchers, and related audio-visual materials, are on this USB drive. I have also sent backups via email to your department's public reporting address. Furthermore," I turned, pointing to Marcus Thorne, who was being restrained by security and appeared deranged. "I suspect Mr. Marcus Thorne has violent tendencies and a flight risk, and I request the police to immediately take him into custody." The officer took the USB drive, weighed it in his hand, his gaze lingering on my composed face for a moment. Then sweeping over Marcus Thorne's disheveled and frantic appearance, he stated calmly, "Ms. Hayes, thank you for your report, Mr. Marcus Thorne." He turned to Marcus Thorne, displaying his badge. "We are now legally summoning you to the station for questioning. Please come with us. No, I'm not going. She's lying. Officer, she's lying. Those are all fake. That bitch fabricated them. Marcus Thorne struggled hysterically, trying to shake off the officer's outstretched hand. Mr. Marcus Thorne, please cooperate. The officer's voice held an undeniable authority as he signaled his subordinates to move forward. The cold handcuffs clicked shut with a sharp sound, unusually jarring in the silent hall. The gleaming metal rings were finally clasped around Marcus Thorne's wrists, the very hands that had moments ago been poised to sign a billion-dollar contract to manipulate fortunes. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. Flashbulbs frantically captured this highly symbolic scene. The once glorious business magnate, standing at the pinnacle of wealth and power, now handcuffed, his hair disheveled, suit askew, his face a mix of extreme anger, fear, and bewilderment, dragged by two police officers, one on each side, like a dead dog, stumbling towards the exit. Behind him, on the giant LED screen, the repulsive image was finally hastily cut, leaving behind a blinding, collapsing blue. The crowd automatically parted, forming a pathway, all eyes shocked, disdainful, pitying, but mostly filled with a complex exhilaration, as if witnessing a historical collapse followed the dragged, utterly fallen figure. Just as Marcus Thorne was being dragged to the exit, about to disappear from sight, he violently struggled to turn his head, his bloodshot eyes piercing through the crowd, once again fiercely locking onto me. That gaze was filled with a bitter, deep-seated hatred, like the final curse of a demon crawled from hell. I stood my ground, my back as straight as a pine, on my face. There was no ecstatic joy of revenge, nor a hint of sadness, only a cold, bottomless calm, like a wilderness after a blizzard. Covered in thick, perpetually frozen ice, I calmly met his eyes, which were filled with ruin, and even, very slowly, raised my hand, not a goodbye, but a gentle wave, directed at him, at this ruined mess of a hall, at the past that had already crumbled, and at the true reckoning that had just begun to unfold in the future. A soft wave, as if flicking away a trivial speck of dust. The clang of cold handcuffs, along with Marcus Thorne's defiant roar like a trapped beast, was finally shut out by the heavy banquet hall doors. The moment the doors closed, it was as if the last vestiges of false warmth were sucked from the room, leaving only scattered champagne glass shards, crumpled contract papers, and an unshakable density of shock, disdain, and schadenfreude in the air. Flashbulbs still flashed frantically, like a swarm of bloodthirsty moths, vying to swarm me, the new focal point. Countless microphones were practically shoved into my face. Questions raining down like dense hail, sharp with probing intent. Ms. Hayes, what are your plans next? Will you take over Apex Industries? How did you obtain the evidence of Marcus Thorne's crimes? Was it obtained through illegal means? Was there a prior grievance between you and Ms. Chloe Davis? Will she be prosecuted as well? There are reports that Apex Industries stock entered a trading halt at market open. How will you address this crisis of trust? I stood at the center of the chaos. Behind me the vast, cold blue screen, it had just swallowed a man's entire world. The spotlights were glaring and hot, but I felt no warmth. The imprint of the small USB drive pressed into my palm was, at that moment, the only real sensation. Facing the cameras almost pressed against my face, I slowly raised my hand, not to block them, but a clear, calm gesture of signal. The entire boisterous hall, strangely, quieted down a few notches, leaving only the clicks of camera shutters. Ladies and gentlemen, my voice resonated through the microphone, steady as a frozen lake, without a single ripple. Apex Industries is the result of countless employees' hard work and dedication. It will not fall because of one individual's moral decay. My gaze swept over a few familiar faces in the audience, several minority shareholders who had always held a small stake and were deeply concerned about the company's current state. One of them, a white-haired old gentleman, nodded almost imperceptibly as my eyes met his. According to the prenuptial agreement I signed with Mr. Marcus Thorne, and his extensive illegal misappropriation of company funds, I paused, letting each word sink clearly into everyone's ears. I have instructed my lawyers to immediately file a pre-judgment asset freeze with the court. The actual control of Apex Industries, during Mr. Marcus Thorne's investigation, will be legally transferred to those who truly care about its future. A suppressed gasp and murmur spread through the audience. Pre-judgment asset freeze. This meant all of Marcus Thorne's shares and accounts would be frozen immediately, completely blocking any possibility of him transferring assets. It was cutting off his lifeline. As for the source of the evidence, my gaze swept over the probing reporters, my tone flat but carrying an invisible pressure. Please trust in the fairness of the law. All evidence chains are clear, complete, and will withstand any form of judicial scrutiny. My legal team will disclose publicly available information when appropriate. Now, please excuse me. There are many matters that require my attention. I no longer looked at anyone, handing the microphone to my lawyer, Mr. Davis, who was standing by, his face stern, surrounded by several security personnel also in black suits and looking alert. I turned. My high heels clicked crisply and monotonously on the scattered brochures printed with billion-dollar partnership as I walked step by step towards the side door. The heavy side door closed behind me, instantly cutting off all the clamor and blinding flashbulbs. The corridor was covered in deep red carpet, muffling my footsteps, leaving only the low hum of the central air conditioning. A vast, almost vacuum-like silence enveloped me. Ms. Hayes, Mr. Davis's voice sounded beside me, with professional calm. The court has synchronously received our asset freeze application materials and expects to have feedback within an hour. Additionally, all known account and real estate information under Marcus Thorne's name has been compiled and is ready for submission. Representatives of several key minority shareholders are waiting for you in the executive huddle room upstairs. I nodded, saying nothing. The cold strength that had sustained me through this lethal strike seemed to subtly withdraw a part of itself the moment the door closed. A profound sense of exhaustion, like an icy tide, silently crept up from my feet. I leaned against the cold, gold-patterned wallpaper, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. The air still carried the scent of champagne and food from the banquet hall, but now it smelled nauseating. Ms. Hayes? Mr. Davis's voice carried a hint of subtle concern. I'm fine. I opened my eyes, straightened up, and firmly pushed down the fragile emotion welling up inside me. Let's go upstairs. In the executive huddle room, the atmosphere was heavy. Several shareholder representatives, including Mr. Henderson, the white-haired old gentleman, sat in silence, their faces a mix of anger, worry, and a hint of post-crisis relief. Ms. Hayes, well done. Mr. Henderson was the first to speak, his voice somewhat agitated, tinged with lingering fear. We've long suspected Marcus Thorne was up to no good. We just never imagined he'd be so bold, so dirty. A whole of hundreds of millions in the company's accounts. He's truly lost his mind. This is not the time for anger. I walked to the head of the table and sat down, signaling my secretary to pour water for everyone. Mr. Henderson, everyone, Marcus Thorne is gone, but the mess remains. The stock market collapse is just the beginning. Banks withdrawing loans, suppliers demanding payment, partners terminating contracts. Apex Industries, this ship, is on the verge of sinking. My words made the atmosphere in the meeting room even heavier. Ms. Hayes, what do you suggest we do? Well, I'll listen to you. Another middle-aged shareholder said eagerly, the company cannot collapse. It's our life's work. First, my fingertips gently tap the smooth tabletop, immediately activate the crisis public relations plan, led by Mr. Davis. A press conference will be held this afternoon with two core messages. 1. Marcus Thorne's criminal acts are purely personal and unrelated to Apex Industries operations. 2. Announce the list of the Interim Management Committee, led by me and composed of you, the shareholders, to stabilize market confidence. All press releases must be personally reviewed by me before the conference. Mr. Davis immediately nodded, taking notes. Second, I looked at Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, you are highly respected and have good personal relationships with the heads of several major partner banks. Please immediately reach out to them, arrange meetings with these bank heads, and present our interim management committee's composition and initial response plan. Plead with them to give Apex Industries some breathing room. Tell them that as long as the banks don't withdraw their loans, Apex Industries has a chance to survive. Otherwise, we all sink together. Mr. Henderson's expression was grave. Good. I'll make the arrangements right away. Third, my gaze swept over the other shareholders. Mr. Miller, you're responsible for reassuring our three largest suppliers. Promise them priority settlement for their outstanding payments. We can negotiate the terms. Mr. Davies, immediately go and reassure the employees. We cannot afford to lose a single key member. Promise them their full monthly salaries will be paid on time. And initiate an internal audit to put everyone's minds at ease. If you encounter any resistance, come directly to me. Command after command was issued. clear and chilling, carrying an undeniable authority. The apprehension on the shareholders' faces gradually gave way to a sense of stability. As if they had found their anchor, they accepted their orders and left. Only Mr. Davis and I remained in the conference room. Ms. Hayes, Mr. Davis adjusted his glasses. Word just came from the police. Marcus Thorne is highly unstable and is currently refusing to speak, however. He keeps ranting. And he mentioned you. He chose his words carefully. Some extremely malicious accusations regarding your personal privacy. The police want you to be prepared. You may need to provide a statement if necessary. Personal privacy? Malicious accusations? I picked up the water glass that had long gone cold on the table, my fingertips sensing the chill of the glass. What else could it be? Nothing but the vile insults he always resorted to when enraged, attacking me for not being woman enough, not complete. Just then, a gentle knock sounded on the conference room door. My assistant, Amy, poked her head in, her expression somewhat peculiar. Ms. Hayes, Chloe Davis, is in the lobby downstairs, insisting on seeing you. She's holding a baby. A baby? The word was like a cold stone dropped into the stagnant lake of my heart, stirring a ripple that quickly subsided into an even deeper chill. A sharp, sudden pain pierced the thick layer of ice around my heart. Crash. The floodgates of long-sealed memories burst open, the pungent smell of disinfectant, the cold metal examination table, the stark, pale light of the surgical lamp, the doctor's voice, calm to the point of cruelty. Ms. Hayes, I'm afraid both fallopian tubes are severely blocked. The possibility of natural conception is extremely remote. Marcus Thorne was standing right beside me then. The expression on his face, initially surprise, rapidly shifted into a mix of disappointment and impatience, finally solidifying into a cold detachment. There was no comfort, no embrace. He just ran a frustrated hand through his hair, his tone a disinterested complaint. How could this happen? What a hassle after that came a long, humiliating process of seeking medical treatment. The bitter scent of herbal remedies permeated what was once a warm and inviting home. Each time a cold instrument probed my body, it felt like a silent, slow torture. As for Marcus Thorne, his patience and companionship, much like his rapidly expanding wealth, quickly dwindled. He started coming home late, carrying the scent of unfamiliar perfume, the impatience in his eyes becoming increasingly unconcealed. Stop all this, will you? I'm exhausted just watching. He once yelled at me, as I silently wept after yet another failed examination. So what if we don't have children? We have money. What more could you possibly want? Stop acting like your life is over. Money. He thought money could fill every void, gloss over everything, give him the righteous justification to seek out a complete woman, to enjoy a complete family. Chloe Davis, a baby. So that was it. This was his perfect excuse, his righteous reason for finally turning to that young girl. He even got her pregnant. On the marital bed where I had dreamed countless times, prayed countless times, yet never conceived, they not only indulged, but also created new life. My heart felt as if an invisible hand had clamped down hard on it, the pain making it almost impossible to breathe, the deepest pain and humiliation, suppressed by force, the pain of a woman, now mixed with a cold hatred, surged and churned in my chest like volcanic lava. My fingers, gripping the water glass, turned white at the knuckles from the force. The coolness of the glass did nothing to extinguish the burning wasteland within my heart. Ms. Hayes? Mr. Davis looked at my suddenly ashen face with concern. I sharply inhaled, forcing down the metallic sweetness that threatened to rise in my throat. The swirling crimson hatred in my eyes was covered by an even deeper, harder layer of ice. The pain transformed, tempered, becoming sharper bones that held me upright. Send her up. My voice was unusually hoarse, yet carried an undeniable resolve. My gaze fell upon the enormous floor-to-ceiling window of the conference room. Outside, the city skyline appeared particularly stark beneath the lead-gray clouds. Take her to the executive huddle room next door. I wanted to see what this woman, clutching her trophy, had to say now that she'd shown up at my doorstep. She and the baby in her arms were nothing more than a part of Marcus Thorne's sordid crimes. True reckoning was never just about law and money. It was also about the life of Evelyn Hayes, trampled upon and treated as worthless. When the executive huddle room door was gently pushed open, I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, my back to the entrance. Outside the window, the city lights were coming on one by one, like a fallen galaxy. The glass reflected my blurred silhouette, a woman in a black suit, her back ramrod straight, like a sword drawn from its sheath. Ms. Hayes, Chloe Davis's voice came from behind me, trembling and timid, completely different from the flirtatious, unrestrained voice in the surveillance footage. I didn't turn around immediately, instead continuing to look out the window. I let the woman holding the baby endure a few more seconds of that invisible pressure. It was a basic psychological tactic. Whoever spoke first lost the upper hand. Please, just give me 5 minutes. Her voice carried a hint of a sob, accompanied by the faint whimpering of the baby. A baby. The word was like a sharp thorn, pricking the softest part of my heart once more. I took a deep breath and slowly turned around. The Chloe Davis before me was a stark contrast to the alluring mistress from the surveillance footage. She was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair loosely tied in a ponytail, her face as pale as paper, her eyes swollen like bruised peaches. She held a baby wrapped in a light blue swaddling blanket, who looked to be no more than 2 or 3 months old. The baby's tiny face was wrinkled, squirming restlessly. Sit. I gestured to the sofa opposite me, my voice so calm it betrayed no emotion. Chloe Davis sat down cautiously, like a startled rabbit, leaning forward as if ready to drop to her knees at any moment. Her eyes dared not meet mine, fixed instead on her trembling knees. Ms. Hayes, I know I have no right to face you, but the baby is innocent. Get to the point. I cut her off, walking over to sit opposite her, my hands clasped on my lap. My time is precious. Chloe Davis snapped her head up, tears immediately streaming down her face. Please, let us go. The money, the houses and cars, I'm willing to give it all back. I don't want anything. I just beg you not to prosecute me. The baby can't lose his mother. I watched her break down, my heart utterly unmoved. Crocodile tears, nothing more, when she climbed into Marcus Thorne's bed. She certainly wasn't thinking about the baby losing its father. You've got one thing wrong, I said slowly, each word as sharp as an icicle. Whether to prosecute or not is not my decision. It's the laws. You participated in embezzlement, accepting bribes, and assisting in falsifying accounts. Each of these is a criminal offense. As for the baby, my gaze fell for the first time on the small bundle in the swaddling blanket, my heart contracting involuntarily. He is indeed innocent, but that's no get-out-of-jail-free card. Chloe Davis trembled violently, then suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud, the baby startled by her abrupt movement and crying loudly. Ms. Hayes, please, I'm willing to testify. I can expose all of Marcus Thorne's crimes. Just please be lenient. I can tell you a secret. A big secret about Marcus Thorne. A secret? I raised an eyebrow slightly, gesturing for her to continue. Chloe Davis wiped away her tears, her voice barely a whisper, tinged with a morbid excitement. Marcus Thorne has been secretly transferring assets abroad for a long time. He has secret accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. The total amount exceeds $300 million. He also forged your signature and laundered money through a shell company under your name. He had it all planned out. Once this major partnership ceremony was signed, he would divorce you and flee the country with the money. My pupils slightly contracted. Although I had already suspected Marcus Thorne would have a contingency plan, the figure of $300 million still exceeded my estimates. As for forging my signature, I scoffed inwardly. That was an unexpected bonus, enough to add a few more years to his sentence. The evidence? I asked calmly. Chloe Davis nodded eagerly, fumbling to pull a small USB drive from the baby's swaddling blanket. It's all here. I secretly backed it up. Marcus Thorne doesn't know I have this. She handed over the USB drive as if presenting a treasure, her face etched with a twisted hope. Is this enough to secure my and the baby's safety? I didn't immediately take the USB drive, instead scrutinizing her face, which was clearly full of calculations. How ironic, just hours ago, she was with Marcus Thorne on my marital bed. Hours later, she could betray him without hesitation. All for her own self-preservation. Marcus Thorne's judgment truly was laughably poor. Not enough. I finally spoke, my voice as cold as a Siberian wind. But if you're willing to testify in court and cooperate with the police investigation, I can consider recommending a more lenient sentence. Chloe Davis's face instantly turned ashen. She slumped to the floor, the baby in her arms crying even louder. The sharp cries were like a dull knife, repeatedly scraping against my nerves. The baby, she murmured, her eyes unfocused. What will happen to him later? Marcus Thorne is going to prison, and I might too. That's your problem. I stood up, looking down at her. Adults always have to pay the price for their choices. I reached out and took the USB drive, which still held the baby's warmth, and turned towards the door. Just as my fingers touched the doorknob, Chloe Davis's hysterical scream erupted from behind me. "You think you've won? Evelyn Hayes, you barren bitch. Marcus Thorne was right. You are a cold-blooded monster. You deserve to be barren. You deserve your husband leaving you." Every word was like a poisoned arrow, accurately striking the most vulnerable part of my heart. My back stiffened for a moment, but quickly returned to normal, without looking back. Without anger, I simply turned the doorknob calmly and walked out without a backward glance. Amidst the baby's heartbreaking cries, in the hallway, Mr. Davis was waiting anxiously. Seeing me emerge, he quickly approached. "Ms. Hayes, the court has approved our pre-judgment asset freeze application. All assets under Marcus Thorne's name have been frozen. Furthermore, the police just notified us that they found, in Marcus Thorne's private safe." "Wait." I cut him off, holding up the small USB drive in my hand. "Take a look at this first. Chloe Davis provided it. She claims it's evidence of Marcus Thorne's overseas asset transfers." Mr. Davis's eyes lit up. He immediately took the USB drive and inserted it into his laptop. A few seconds later, his expression shifted from surprise to shock. "My God, this is even more detailed than what we have. Bank account statements from Switzerland, the shell company structure in the Cayman Islands, and even, wait, what's this?" He suddenly widened his eyes. "Ms. Hayes, there's also a personal accident insurance policy in here. The beneficiary is Marcus Thorne, and the insured is you." My blood ran cold. Mr. Davis's voice became exceptionally serious. "The coverage is $50 million, and the policy date is 3 months ago. Just 1 week before your last business trip." "Ms. Hayes, this is no coincidence. 3 months ago. That accidental brake failure. At the time, I just thought the car was old and poorly maintained. But now that I think about it, that Mercedes-Benz was less than a year old." A chill shot up my spine from my feet. Marcus Thorne not only betrayed me and used me, he also tried to kill me. My heart pounded violently in my chest, but my expression remained calm as still water. Anger and fear were compressed into an even harder resolve. I reached out and closed the laptop, my voice so soft it was almost inaudible. "Hand all of this over to the police. Attempted murder. That's enough to keep him in prison for several more years." Mr. Davis nodded solemnly, quickly gathering the documents to leave. Just then, my phone suddenly vibrated. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. "Hello?" I pressed the answer button. "Is this Ms. Evelyn Hayes?" A male voice. Unfamiliar and coldly professional. "This is the emergency department at City General Hospital. A patient under your name, Chloe Davis, has just been admitted in critical condition. You are listed as her emergency contact at our hospital." I froze. "What? Chloe Davis? What happened to her?" "Preliminary diagnosis is acute drug poisoning. She left a suicide note, specifically addressed to you. Additionally, there's a 2-month-old male infant with her, currently being looked after by the nurses. Please come as soon as possible." I couldn't hear the rest of what he said. All I heard was the roaring rush of blood in my ears. Drug poisoning. A suicide note? She actually committed suicide? "Ms. Hayes, what's happened?" Mr. Davis asked with concern. I mechanically hung up the phone, my voice distant, as if from far away. "Chloe Davis committed suicide. She's being resuscitated at the hospital." Mr. Davis gasped. "My God, what about the baby?" "The baby is fine," I answered instinctively, then suddenly realized something. Looking up to meet Mr. Davis's shocked gaze, that baby, that innocent 2-month-old little life, who had just been crying in the swaddling blanket. Now, he was an orphan, his father was about to go to prison, and his mother's fate was uncertain. And by law, as Marcus Thorne's legal wife, I was now this child's sole guardian. The world spun. Fate, the cruel scriptwriter, revealed its most ironic twist at this moment. The child I had longed for, dreamed of, but could never have, was now thrust into my life in such an absurd way. "To the hospital," I heard myself say, my voice impossibly calm. Immediately, 3 months later, early spring sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling window, spreading a golden patch of light on the floor. I sat in my office, piles of documents awaiting my signature before me. Apex Industries not only didn't collapse after enduring the storm, but, under my leadership, completed its asset restructuring, with its stock price rebounding to a level even higher than before the incident. A knock sounded on the door. "Come in." Mr. Davis pushed the door open, a barely concealed joy on his face. "Ms. Hayes, good news. Marcus Thorne's case has just been sentenced 15 years in prison. All illegal gains have been confiscated, and thanks to the evidence from that personal accident insurance policy and the brake failure, the charge of attempted murder was also upheld." I nodded, my face showing little joy. This long revenge finally came to an end, but there was no exhilarating satisfaction I had imagined, only the calm of dust settling. Also, all the adoption procedures for the baby have been completed. Mr. Davis handed me a folder. "Legally speaking, he is now your son." I took the file, my fingertips gently tracing the name that had officially been changed to Leo Hayes. Over the past 3 months, this little one, who unexpectedly entered my life, had slowly melted the ice in my heart with his purest smiles and unreserved dependence. "Oh," and Mr. Davis walked to the door and then turned back. "Marcus Thorne has requested to see you, saying he has something important to discuss. What do you think?" "No," I answered without looking up, my voice calm and resolute. "What's past is past now. I have more important responsibilities and concerns." Returning home after work, I pushed open the door, and a scent of milk wafted towards me. The nanny was playing with little Leo in the living room. Seeing me, she immediately smiled. "Ms. Hayes, you're back." Little Leo was so well behaved today. He kept watching the door. The little one heard my voice, immediately turned his head, his dark, grape-like eyes brightening. He waved his tiny hands and babbled, a string of clear drool hanging from the corner of his mouth. I put down my bag and walked over to pick him up. He immediately snuggled into my arms, rubbing his little head against my shoulder, emitting contented coos. This unreserved trust quietly softened a corner of my heart. "How was your day, little sonny?" I asked softly, kissing his little face that smelled of milk. He giggled, his tiny hand grasping a strand of my hair. The grip wasn't strong, yet it was impossible to pull away. Just like fate, I once thought my life was destined to be a solitary journey, until this tiny life, with whom I shared no blood relation, appeared, and with his purest existence, taught me what unconditional love and acceptance truly meant. Outside the window, the setting sun cast its last golden rays through the glass, stretching our embracing silhouettes long across the floor. At the intersection of shadow and light, a new story was just beginning.